this one I'd like to sort of keep it light. I know it's the first panel, but like this is an exciting topic to discuss. You know, we've heard the news, we've seen it everywhere. We hear whispers. You know, all the developments across the country. So it's not even just limited to Metro Manila, but we're seeing a lot of growth over the at least for the past year. And so there's been snippets on revenge travel. There's been snippets on some new developments, both north and south. But let's start the ball rolling. First off, if sometimes I ask Claro, like he's sort of a crystal ball when it comes to a discussion. It's like the best guess we can get from Claro. But I think I'll throw my first question to Claro as to how do you see the hotel expansion so far over the year, and where do you think this will take us?
Thank you, Kash, and good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Claro Cordero from Cushman and Wakefield. So, Cushman and Wakefield, for those who are not familiar, we are a property services company. So we provide, services to developers, to investors, from womb to tomb. So if when you conceive the development, and until the time that you want to dispose of your property, then we're, we can be your partner all along the way. But going back to Cash's question, I think over the last few years, we've seen a resurgence of investment activity in the hotel segment. Notwithstanding, what happened during and immediately before the pandemic, when we've seen a dearth of completions in hotel developments. When I said that, prior to the pandemic, we've had a lineup of about more than 13,000 rooms, across all segments. So be it middle income or 3-star, 4-star up to 5, 6-star hotel development across the country. But after the pandemic hit us, we've seen zero commitment. Out of that 13,000 rooms, we've seen zero commitments for the last maybe a bit for the first 4 quarters of the pandemic. So from first quarter of 2020 up to the early 2021, those that were scheduled to be completed were like delayed, or they said they're not going to complete it in time. But soon after we opened the economy, we've seen a resurgence, like what I've said. And over the last 2 years, we've seen about 6,000 hotel rooms added to the supply pipeline. This year alone, we're seeing more or less about 5,000 rooms to be completed in the country. And you've seen that. Where does it take us? It's not just Metro Manila that we're seeing a resurgence of development activity for the hotel segments. We're seeing a lot of that happening, be it in Cebu, be it in Davao, Cagayan de Oro, even Subic. I was in Subic yesterday, and I was surprised to see there's going to be an Accor, 2 Accor branded development. Sorry to how do you call that? Announce that ahead of time. Sorry, Kash. But as I've learned from various sources in Subic, so I was really just surprised to see the appetite for that development again, and I think over the next few years we're going to be seeing this resurgence of interest in hotel investments as one of the sunrise industries, and one of going to be the darling of investment sector moving forward.
Thank you, Claro. I have a question for Attorney Agnes. Like Attorney Agnes, of course, you have the overall view of what's happening in Clark. I think what I'm curious about is, could you share with us your experience with Clark, and in a way, what's the secret sauce for your team and for the group as to how are you attracting a lot of the investors going into Clark?
Sauce. I'm attracted to that word, sauce. Yeah. What's the sauce? It could be burro. Well, but at any rate, when I came in, that was in 2022, so I reviewed the records. In 2021, we were a little bit sleepy because we were just reeling out of the pandemic. And we can see the increase in investments. And in fact, when you said that there are 5,000 more hotel rooms for this year, you know, I'm so happy because 1,000 of your 5,000 are being built in Clark. So, and where's our innkeeper? One of the hotels will be Henry Hotel. So that's the kind of market share that we have in Clark. So why so? I think it's all because we're looking at an ecosystem. It has to be something complete. So it's an ecosystem. And the other factor, which is very, very important, is the infra. The roads, the network that will go to the destination. Because in 2 years or so, we will have the rail. And Clark is the only free port with a beautiful airport, international airport. So that's the second. And the third, which may not be the last, is the X factor. So what's the X factor? You want to define it by during the night, during the day, but there must be an X factor. And the X is experiential. So the hotels alone are better, they attract more when you partner them with restaurants and when you define enclaves. So we develop some areas as enclaves, and we have a row of restaurants with historical value because they are barn houses, and no two restaurants offer the same menu. So people who stay in hotels always ask, where else can we eat? So it's a symbiotic relationship. So we're saying that it's an ecosystem. We also have our medical facilities. So these are some of the major things that we are putting in place. And the proof of the pudding is that for the first half of the year, we already generated and attracted 74 billion investments in Clark. Of course, not all of these are tourism related, but that's the kind of ecosystem that we're putting place in Clark. So of the 5,000, you'll find the 1,000 rooms in Clark.
I can't deny that, you know, Filipinos do love to eat. Exhibit A, myself. So it's very nice to know that, you know, there will be a lot more options. I know that in some, like a lot of locations, you stay at a hotel, you try all the food, but sometimes you still want something new. You still want something that's different. Try the local stuff. So that's, I think, one thing that has been I'm truly excited about. For Lynette, I think this is a different perspective from an owner-operator's perspective. We're talking about record high developments. What has been the strong driving force, do you think, on your end for this growth? And what strategies do you think should hotel investors look out for when it comes to at least the space that you're into?
The natural resources, the beauty of the Philippines. People will always come back for that. And also the warm hospitality of the Filipinos. But there are a lot of things that we need to do. So as an investor, but there are a lot of things that we need to put in place to complement just the beauty and the warm hospitality of the Filipinos. So allow me to summarize the 4 things that Attorney Agnes mentioned. And it's easier for you to remember the 4 A's. First, when investing, the first A has to be attraction. You do not put a hotel, you do not put an accommodation where there's no attraction, be it a beautiful beach, mountain, the temperature, a convention center, a central business district. There has to be a reason that people will go to your place. Next is accessibility. Land, air, water. For some reason, it has to be accessible by people in, out. Accessibility also means accessibility to your resources. Water, electricity, food, human capital. It has to be available. And activities. As attorney mentioned, it cannot just be within the hotel. It has to be a destination already. So there has to be restaurants, my favorite, grocery stores, convenience stores around in the area, plus the amenities. So these 4 things has to be present when investing. Now, in terms of strategy, first is invest in knowledge and experience. Go ahead and pay that fee, get a partner, get a management contract, and let them start your business. If I may, call Discovery Hospitality. Attorney, can you open a Discovery Hospitality in Claro?
Why not?
Next is invest in the brand. When opening, it is important that the whole world or even the Philippines would readily accept and buy your brand. So invest in the brand. And lastly, invest in your distribution and digital marketing. We have here our team in Discovery Hospitality. We have Marla and Blessy. They're our thought leaders. So we make sure that for this particular need in the hotel industry, it's present in our management contracts. So yeah, I hope that's enough strategy.
It's more than enough. I think developers are looking to those when it comes to entering the hospitality. But I think looking at, in general, real estate developers, of course, they have a lot of real estate asset types that they can choose from. So it's not a matter of just saying hotel right away. There is still that option, right? So this question, I think, for me, goes to Claro. We're in having insights on the different real estate asset types, knowing that we have developers here who are very used to building condos, offices. So having that insight of other real estate asset types, how would you say is the interest of these investors or developers into hospitality versus the other asset types?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, we think moving forward, hotel investment or hospitality investments in general will be it wouldn't be like flavor of the month, but it will be like one of the favored assets to invest in by developers. But I think I'd like to also qualify that by saying, there are various options out there, like office, for example, and like I said, residential. If you compare, the movement of investment yields across segments, so if you compare them, we're seeing a gradual increase in yields, in expected yields for developers. Naturally, because we still have a lot of macroeconomic headwinds to begin with. The inflation hasn't gone down that significantly. Interest rates remain to be elevated. We haven't seen a bigger decline or a bigger cut by the monetary board as what's expected by a lot of investors. So that in itself drives investment yields across segments. And historically and anecdotally, hotel investments is one of the highest in terms of expected yields. A lot of investors are looking at hotel to be one of the with the highest investment yields in the entire spectrum. So it definitely has an effect on how one will treat his money and where to put his investment money in. And but I think having said that, when everything else increases, what an investor would have to do is to really just have to diversify where he wants to put his money. So diversification in investments as of the moment is one of the key with the key actions among investors. And given the potentials that this segment has been giving to the market, and as a signal, I think a lot of investors will put or will definitely include hospitality investments into their portfolio.
So I guess it's more bankable.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a form of diversification with having with having some of the real estate assets already in their portfolio. Okay. Atty. Agnes, this is quite, I would say, I'm not sure if it's a challenging question, but like since I feel that you had such tremendous growth already, how do you take that? Record-breaking we're talking about record-breaking developments, future of Philippine hotels, and Clark is already, I would say, it's up here, right? So I think that's why I think it's a challenging question. Is how do you level up from there? How do you exceed the success that you've already achieved?
Well, Cass, yeah, that's true. It's challenging, and when we realized that Clark is already 31 years old. We have all the roads and the means of transportation. We have reached a certain level. That's the more challenging. It's not the inviting investors, but how do you maintain the investors? There were two things that we found very, very important and vital. One is the ease in doing business. Investors, when they come, they don't want to be talking with so many people. They don't want to deal with from the purok leader to the barangay to the, it's ease in doing business. What are the requirements? And every time they go, there will be additional requirements. So one of the things that we tackled is the ease in doing business. We came up with a business one-stop shop where you only have windows, not buildings that you will have to go through, but just windows. In fact, as you enter, there's that queuing system, the automated queuing system. And so you have your list of requirements on the window, and those are the things that you only have to do and submit. And most of our processes are automated, including cashier. When you pay in the comfort of your offices, you can just remit, just like ordering from Shein and all that stuff. We should be at that level. There are just very few that have not been automated, like the building permit, because what you will submit are too big. So that's one. And the other one that we have to address, so in the ease of doing business, that's on the ground floor. On the second floor are the account officers. If there are problems, you just go up. And on the third floor, all things fail, you go to my office. So I'm part of the one-stop shop. Okay, so the other one is the lower cost of doing business. Even if you're a small hotel or you're a big manufacturing firm, we try to address the cost of power. We cannot subsidize, but we have a program which is the solar rooftop panels. And we push for that. We have ready financiers, the banks are there, so you don't have to bring in collateral. So that's what we call the cost in doing business. And the cost in doing business also includes governance. So good governance. So that is the president or the vice presidents that you need to talk with? Do you have to write a letter and all that stuff? No, that's going to be too costly on your time. Just Viber me and I will confirm your appointment. So things like that. Those are the most important things. And we maintain the environment. In fact, we are now formulating the Clark Green Code because we can take pride that maybe there are very few places now in the Philippines with so many century-old trees. And we also maintain a good percent of the open spaces in Clark. You know, you'd want to go to a place where you'll feel good, you'll feel secure, you'll feel fresh, you'll feel safe. And we have a fenced area. The entire Clark is fenced. So for all of you, for those who would like to have your investments, look into something, get into our partnership, and be part of the community, come to Clark. We'll take care of you.
Thanks. I can personally attest to that. When I visited the Clark Development office, Attorney Agnes was personally there to see me, and I was very, very grateful for that. Going back to the owner-operator side, Lynette, have you seen some trends in guest experience that is influencing the way the hotels are being developed right now? Or are there trends that are actually sort of triggering that, hey, maybe we should do this instead or that? Have you seen those kind of trends from your perspective? Sorry.
I'll take this. Oh, dami.
Dami. Musical chair, mic edition. Okay, so I'm sure everyone has heard about these three things that I'll mention. And especially if you're in the investment or construction part, it's sustainability. And this is not sustainability CSR where you clean the shores and you take a picture, right? This is sustainability that's anchored in the 4 Ps: people, planet, and profitability. And in order for you to optimize and maximize on profitability, it has to start with a concept stage, the construction, with a design stage. Also, why is this important? Because companies who are also very conscious about ESG, they also want hotels that are conscious, that are ESG compliant. So they support hotels that are very conscious about sustainability. Next is, what's next? So, post-pandemic, it's wellness. So people are big on wellness, as simple as having the calories in the menu, as simple as having healthy options in your menu, as simple as providing activities that will tell the guest going from Station 1 to the mall would take you 5 kilometers, and that will be 500 calories, diba? So, and lastly, it's destination marketing. It's difficult to just push the brand, especially if we are competing with, our like Thailand, Vietnam. They're so strong with this. So do destination marketing. Don't just talk about your properties. But what guests can do in your area, in your island. So those are the 3 things that I've seen that affect the guests' preferences and experience.
Thank you so much, Lynette. I think we've been receiving a lot of questions from the audience, so I think we can go through some of that. I think this question would be like the first question here. Do hotel investors prefer to buy land or lease land? I think let's start with Claro on this one.
Well, it really depends on the objective of the investor. sometimes buying land can be a good option, especially if they're really in there for a long haul. I mean, they're going to expand, vigorously in that area. But I think leasing land is becoming a norm as well for a lot of investors, given that's also what other markets are offering, like Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and somehow it provides some flexibility to the investors to easily flip the property once it decides to get out of the market, and once they've achieved their investment objectives.
So you really have. I mean, you can do you can do both.
Yeah. Well, I decided to volunteer because in Clark, lands are being held on leasehold. But there's a law that is now in the Senate, and we will be allowed to declare about 5% of the residential areas and 5% of the commercial, of the industrial, to be on freehold, meaning you can have titles. But just like what Claro said, there are increasing number of countries actually going into lease. Under Philippine laws, we are allowed to lease the land for a good period of 50 years and can be renewed for another 25 years. So now, what is the determining factor on the number of number of years? It's really the amount of investment, because we want you to recover at the same time, really, really earn out of it. So, and from the looks of it, people are excited to have them declared freehold. But when we started talking with them, as Clara pointed out, some really have their own reasons for just maintaining the leasehold.
Actually, that's wonderful news for some of the investors who are really just eyeing on, very fixated on doing freehold rather than leasehold. I guess a follow-up question we have here in the screen. Can you go? There you go. For Attorney Agnes, it's very specific. Clark is such an impressive place, disciplined, easy, clean, and modern. Do you think it is replicable to other areas? Why aren't there more?
Well, there's something in Clark that may be different from the rest, from the others. One is the physical attributes, like what the Americans have left. It used to be, as we all know, former Air Force base of the U.S. and the biggest outside of the mainland. And so we have really wide roads. So those are very big factor. We have the parade grounds in the middle of Clark, which is 22 hectares. We have the bike lane all around Clark, which is actually 25 kilometers. So, mahaba. So this, and the century-old trees, as we said. And it's replicable, maybe, but your trees may not be century-old. And it may be replicable in Freeport areas, because one of the things that investors, yes, Mr. D, one of the things that investors really would like to see is the ease in doing business. So for as long as it will be institutionalized, the ease in doing business, a lot of things, these are game changers in inviting investors. But if the investors will have to go through and in fact suffer by going from one official to another, and when the rules are not clear, when you are not transparent in your governance, it's going to be difficult. So I am just very happy and lucky that we have very good culture of governance in the corporation.
Thank you, Attorney. This one is, I feel that this question has always been asked to most of the panels in tourism hospitality, but I still am curious to know your thoughts as to if you were to choose 3 locations. I would think that some of our like developers here, investors, are also interested in that. If you're looking into which 3 locations in the Philippines you'd like to, you're confident that will grow strongly in this industry for at least for the immediate term, around 3 to 5 years, which locations would that be? So let's go first with Lynette.
I think the Metro Manila needs a luxury brand. So I hope a new luxury brand will come in soon to improve the brand equity of Metro Manila as a central business district. Next would be Palawan. That place is just so beautiful and the rest of the world has to see it. But we need really good hotels there. And it has to be luxury brands as well. And lastly, I think for me is Siargao. I think so much is being said about Siargao. So those are my 3 favorite places right now.
Claro?
Having been around the Philippines for the last few months, because we've been advising a lot of investors, not just hotel but also retail and also residential developers. I think Central Luzon, not that Atty. Devanadera is here, but as I've said, if you go to Central Luzon in particular, between Clark and maybe La Union, so that whole stretch, you don't see any branded hotel. In a very good brand. Of course, there's the Clark area has Marriott and all, but outside of that, if you go to Tarlac, for example, you go to Nueva Ecija, you don't see a lot of those good options. And people do go to those places, not just in doing business, but also they go there for leisure. For a time, I was excited to hear that there's a developer, I don't know if it's Discovery, he was very interested in doing something in Baler, in Aurora. But for a time, I think that was shelved for some reason. So I think that whole stretch, that might be a big area. But it also Mindanao, if Davao, for example, I think that place also needs, that city needs a good number of hotels. When you go to Davao for a conference and all, it's typical that you'll be waitlisted. At any time of the year, you'll be waitlisted because there's not a lot of options. You've got some good brands there, but the price differences also matters in the price differential. For business travelers, definitely it has an impact. We wanted something that caters, to our preferences, not just in terms of pricing, but also the types of amenities that they will offer. So and lastly, Palawan. Yeah, I've been to Lynette's Palawan destination in last month, and definitely outside of that, you don't see a lot of good options. In Coron Town, for example, you don't see a lot of, there's 2 seasons there, but again, price differential. So there should be a balance between that, between very high end and an economy type of development within these areas.
Attorney, I know that Clark is number 1 on the list.
Yeah, but
Can you give me a top 2, top 3?
as I said a while ago, within Clark, we looked at the ecosystem. But the bigger view should be having more hotels outside of Clark. Because if you're a tourist, whether you're a leisure tourist or you're part of the MICE, you'd like to have different areas whenever you go. So it's really going to be a symbiotic relationship when we have the 5-star hotels outside of Clark, because that's now the difficulty. Inside Clark, we have 5-star hotels, but our problem is we need business hotels. Now, outside of Clark, there may be some business hotels, and so people are looking for the five-star hotels. So when you have, like, we're getting most of the conferences precisely because we have the high-end hotels, but we are also having the government conferences and symposium and all those activities because we have the business hotels. We're getting all the races, motorcycle, bike, and all, because we have the business hotels. But see, after you've been to Clark many times over, so they'd ask, oh, what is outside of Clark? And you're right, Claro. If we can have other hotels outside, and we mean the good hotels, the five-star hotels, that will really help us. And for Palawan, that's true. We are also developing Clark, because of our airport, a transit area. So from the US, especially our Balikbayan, we're offering Clark as a transit area. So we can have there one night, or even if we don't have there one night, they just use our airport and we bring them to Palawan. So we just have to look at it in a very holistic manner. So that's the hotelier.
Thank you, Attorney. And like for me, like I'm also very, of course, I'm from Accor. I'm very
Yes.
passionate about hotels and of course the Philippines. Just trying to also weigh in on where I see some good locations, or in general as a gap. You know, I think we can look at two things. We can look at city hotels, regional city hotels, wherein we feel that, you know, we already have the talent. Like Filipino hospitality is known throughout the world. So I think it's a matter of utilizing and harnessing that talent in terms of having more hotels in the regional cities, whether it's, of course, there are benefits of having a good brand in the regional cities. But on the other side of it, I would take a look at resorts. I think that's aligned with what everyone was saying here about Palawan. Because of the beaches, natural resources, we cannot be replicated, similar to the century-old trees, which can no longer be replicated. But these are the locations I would think that the hotels would really do well. And it's not just a matter of trying to build and eat, you know, from the other person's pie, right? It's about organic growth and the demand, the pent-up demand that's in those locations. Sorry, I was told I should wrap up. Okay, but you know, for the Philippines having record-breaking developments and a strong and bright future for hotels here in the Philippines, I would like to thank our panelists, Attorney Agnes, Ms. Lynette, and Claro, for this first panel of the 7th Hospitality Philippines Conference. Thank you so much.